Yeah, every time I talk into the mic, I want to like make some like deeper voice and
That's why you do home chanting and yoga. You align your frequency, your energy. And also something interesting, when you hum, the humming produces intranasal nitric oxide.
Intranasal
nitric oxide.
Nitric
It's a
oxide.
chemical that you don't have to take, that you can produce, and it raises your. What it does is 15-fold. So you're producing 15 times more nitric oxide, and this nitric oxide expands your bronchi and your blood vessels. And so when you're breathing, let's say you do breath work. Let's say I hum before my breath work and you don't, and we have the same rhythm of breath. I'm going to absorb more oxygen than you will, because the bronchi are more open. Right?
Okay.
So that's why the M part of the that humming. These Swedish scientists in 2002 did the experiment, and they did some samples of the person's biochemistry, and nitric oxide was increased.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it the M frequency? Like when you say M,
just humming. If you have a song you like, you know that song "Pumped Up Kids"? It's got a good vibe. So I'm like, just humming like that. Puts in a good mood, and you're humming and you're producing intranasal nitric oxide.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so if you want, you can move the mic however you feel comfortable. You can move it back, you can move it forward, you can adjust it.
Back and forth, back and forth.
Is that a song?
It's Wu-Tang Clan, a gravel pit.
Nah.
Check out my gravel pit.
Oh yeah.
A mystery unraveling. Back and forth. It's catchy.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I think that I think we're good. Yeah, if you want, you can just face it towards you, the mic.
What do you mean? Oh, okay. Makes a difference.
Yeah. Because if you speak out here, it's like,
oh yeah, look at that.
Speak here,
yeah,
then
big difference.
Yeah, it's one directional.
It's to weed out the rest of the
exactly.
sounds.
So all these sounds are not going to be caught.
We don't want them.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. So neurohacking.
Okay, is this on? Are you?
Yeah, we've been on.
Oh, we've been on.
This is all part of it. We're here. Yeah. Why do you so I've been doing some research about neurohacking before the show, and there's a lot of external things you can do to help with the neurohacking, right?
Yeah.
There's nootropics.
Yeah. There's
binaural sounds that you can hear.
Binaural beats.
There's a lot. There's food digestion with your microbiome, which affects the whole brain, the nerva connection between your gut and your brain. Yeah. There's just so many. So neurohacking. Can you what is the basics? What for someone who's probably heard of it before and thinks neurohacking is the brain, it's the nervous system, but what's your take on it?
Biohacking, neurohacking, it's all connected. It's pretty similar. It's like a hacker knows the systems, like a laptop or software, and they know how to hack and they know their way around it. The idea is to know our nervous system and to hack it to optimize it so it functions better.
Okay. Our
health, avoid diseases. There's so much money that goes into research for cancer, but why not teach where the cancer comes from and how to avoid it, rather than to repair it once it's broken, the body, right?
I think, yeah.
So if you know how to optimize your system, you know how to make some changes in your lifestyle, in your environment, epigenetics, then you can avoid these issues that you could have if you didn't know how to hack your system. And bio and neuro, so neurology comes from the neurons and neurotransmitters, and we also have hormones and neurotransmitters. Some of them act as both, but the neurons are usually much faster, and they communicate between synapses, and biochemicals like hormones will come out of the endocrine system, and they're usually slower release. But I mean, biohacking, neurohacking, one affects the other, so it's pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, but would you say that biohacking is more of the entire body, and neurohacking is just with the nervous system, or is it all the
The
same?
whole body is connected to the nervous system. It
Right.
gives rise to your consciousness. Right?
Okay.
If you're paralyzed and you're looking one way and somebody's poking you with a needle,
Mm-hmm.
you won't be conscious of that effect on your body.
Right.
So it's not just the brain, but it's the whole body and mind.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Nice. I like that. Yeah. I think that everything is connected. I mean, especially within the body, right? So to just say that, you know, one part is not part of the other, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
So
Actually, funny you should say that. I knew two med students. They had finished med school, actually. They were residents. And I told them that the nervous system and the immune system are deeply connected. And they told me, nope, they're not connected. One is chemical and one is electrical.
okay.
But they're both part of your body. How could they not be connected? Of course they're connected. If you're in the fight or flight and you're in the sympathetic nervous system, you're managing energy in a way where you're neglecting your immune system to focus on the threat that's putting you in the sympathetic nervous system. So of course they're connected, right?
Okay.
Like you just said.
Which one is electrical and which one is
So the
chemical?
nervous system is electrical
Okay.
impulses. The brain communicates with the rest of the body electrically, and the other part, the immune system, is biochemical.
Biochemical. Okay. But then also too, I mean, the nervous system, like the nerves connecting, do send chemical.
They do. Yeah.
So it's all. I mean,
It's all,
it's
like you just said, it's all connected.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
biochemical. It's
Yeah.
one is not just one electrical. And yeah, they're all connected. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So all right. So when you were trying to do this neurohacking, and what is the purpose? What is the goal? Because a lot of people, when they hear neurohacking, they hear, okay, I want to have an edge over someone. I want to be, I want to be better, proficient at my job, or I want to be smarter so I can make more money, or so I can have more possessions, or maybe I want to neurohack so I can be happier and I don't want to be depressed anymore. What should you be looking at? Should you be looking at an advantage, or should you be looking at what, like in terms of what is your goal? What is the
For me, it's not really the competition aspect, because you
Mhm.
shouldn't compete with other people, but more of the evolution of the self. So you should maybe look at how you were yesterday, and hopefully you've evolved and you've become better.
right?
And if you can raise your levels of energy through these different neurohacking methods, the more energy a person has, the more they can expand their awareness.
I like that.
Because it takes energy to think, and sometimes you see people and it's like you're trying to explain them something very logic and pragmatic, and they're just they can't get it, or they're refusing that belief. Because changing your beliefs is not just like, oh, okay, sure. No, it's like, what does that entail? The subconscious mind knows you're gonna have to spend a lot of energy. If you want to convert to veganism, you're not gonna say, okay, I'm gonna become a vegan because of your argument. The subconscious mind knows, okay, then if I accept this premise, I have to change my places where I buy my food. What food do I have to buy? Which restaurants do I have to go? I have to research that stuff. That research will take energy. You don't consciously know this. You're just saying, no, I don't think you need to be vegan.
Right.
But then the subconscious mind knows, if I accept this premise, it's going to be a lot of energy. And if you don't have that excess energy, your body will become weak. And so your body is trying to self-preserve by refusing these concepts. And so that's why cognitive dissonance happens, because people try to preserve their energy. So if you have higher levels of energy, you can expand your awareness and accept new premises and then evolve.
Wow, that's amazing. I've never heard it explained so simply. The cognitive.
It's so simple when you think about the biology of it, because in biology, whether it's a single cell bacteria or a complex human being, there's three priorities. One is to ensure survival at all cost. Number two is to manage energy efficiently, because if you don't, you fail at the first one eventually.
Right.
And number three is to reproduce.
Okay.
Right? The cell has to reproduce. We humans also have the will to reproduce. And so if you look at it that way, this is what the body's doing and the mind is doing. It's preserving energy to ensure its survival.
Right. And the brain consumes the organ that consumes the most energy, right?
Exactly.
What is it? It's like 25%?
25%. And it weighs 3% of the body. So you can see how it's the most energy requiring organ in the body.
Right. So if you're trying to do all these things, and it's trying to preserve energy. Because I heard also too, for example, when you fast and you stop eating and having energy coming in, what the body does, what a cell will do is say, okay, you're not eating anymore. Should I divide? Should I use resources to divide? Or should I try to not put so much energy into dividing instead of just organize and reorganize myself and become more efficient?
Yes.
So yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, and when you like, I've had mononucleosis when I was in university, and I was studying biochemistry in university, and I understood you shouldn't eat fats. You should eat fruits, vegetables, because it's the least energetically requiring process for your metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
So if already you're like at a really low state of energy with mononucleosis, and you're eating fats and meats, it's going to take a lot of energy. So you're going to drain your system instead of recovering.
Right.
So it's going to lengthen the recovery process.
Okay. So we're getting into neurohacking with your diet. So can you explain some different techniques or tips with neurohacking your body through diet and through environments?
Yeah, so epigenetics involves a lot of concepts and a lot of factors. What is epigenetics, right? Some people don't know.
Yeah.
So epigenetics is the environment that affects your system.
Okay.
And people will say, well, I'm prone to this disease and that disease because it's in my genetic tree, right? But saying that is like saying I produce adrenaline because my parents produced adrenaline. No, you have the genes to produce adrenaline. It's in the code of your genes, but you're turning on that gene if you feel fear. If you don't feel fear, you won't turn on the gene that produces adrenaline. But if you're always producing adrenaline, then you're wearing down the system.
Right.
So it's not your genes and your parents that created the disease, but it's your level of consciousness and your perception that's activating the genes.
Okay.
So another example is just eating junk food, right? I don't know if you saw the movie Super Size Me.
Yeah.
Where this teenager, if I remember correctly, was a teenager.
I think he's an older guy.
Or his father was doing this study, was it not? And then he subjected his kid.
Oh, it's the McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
The McDonald's.
So breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah. He ate McDonald's like for a month or something. Or a year, I don't know. Yeah.
And it affects your, like you were saying, your gut and your brain. And so you might become more irritable. You might not even realize it yourself. But people around you will say, what's gotten into you? You're very aggressive, or because they say you are what you eat, right? And so, the diet will also affect the potential or the available nutrients and the building blocks of your neurotransmitters and your hormones. So tryptophan, for example, is an amino acid, one of the basic amino acids. And so, they say when you eat turkey, you get really sleepy because tryptophan is a precursor to melatonin. And melatonin is the hormone of sleep. Right? Okay. So if you want to sleep properly and you're having a hard time because of a lot of stress, instead of taking melatonin supplements, which is outsourcing your system, you can internalize and you can change your diet, optimize it. You can do some sungazing and you can meditate to reduce the cortisol, because cortisol and melatonin have an inverse relationship. So obviously if you're super stressed, you're producing a lot of cortisol, your emotion is changing your biochemistry and you're suppressing melatonin.
Okay.
Right. So I'll never tell people to buy supplements. I'll always tell them to go within and to do some sun gazing, some meditation, because we all have the tools.
Right. So is melatonin what's on your skin? Or
no, that's melanin.
Oh, that's melanin.
Melatonin is the hormone for sleep.
Oh, melatonin.
So your circadian rhythm flips from serotonin in the daytime to melatonin in the nighttime. Okay. And reverse. When you wake up, you open your eyes, the light hits your retina, and then it sends a signal to your brain to convert the melatonin back to serotonin. They almost have they have a very similar molecular structure.
Okay. And so talking about sleep now, there's also different ways to neurohack your sleep, right? There's blue blockers for light, and there's being in a good environment with sound and acoustics and not having disruptions when you sleep.
Yes.
Can you talk about some of that?
So blue blocking glasses are mainly relevant for people who can't let go of their technology. If you're not on your phone or your laptop until late at night,
right?
Actually, after supper or sundown, that's when you should let go of the electronics.
Okay.
But we know what world we live in, and people are addicted to their technology, and so that's why blue blocking glasses are so popular. Mm-hmm. But if you could just let go and read a book or have a conversation, take walks in the evenings, whatever you can hack in your environment and your epigenetics to promote a healthy level of melatonin, then you don't need those glasses. But if you're on your electronics, it's recommended to use those glasses.
Because I feel like a lot of people also will go to sleep watching Netflix or go to sleep
television
on Facebook or Instagram or some kind of technology.
So what's happening is that the blue light from your TV, your screen, it's confusing and it's tricking your brain saying that it's daytime. And so it's postponing the conversion of serotonin to melatonin. So even though you go to bed at midnight because you're tired, if you're on your laptop until 11:45, you're going to go to bed and fall asleep right away because you're tired. But your melatonin optimal levels will only kick in maybe, I don't know, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. The highest peak of melatonin in your circadian rhythm is at 4:30 in the morning. This is why a lot of meditators start meditating at 4:30 in the morning.
Really?
It's when the mind is the quietest and you can access altered states of consciousness while you're awake. It just facilitates the process.
Nice.
Right?
And in terms of sound, so
just before we move on to sound, I mentioned sungazing. So people are like, sungazing, what is that? And even I reacted that way the first time I saw that. I'm like, that's just crazy because of belief systems that we have. You think you stare at the sun, you burn your retina, which is true. Depends at what time, right? So this sun-gazing practice has been practiced by the yogis, ancient Egyptians, the Incas, the Aztecs. All of the cultures worshipped the sun and they stared at the sun because they knew that it optimized their system.
In what way?
So remember I said when you wake up, you open your eyes and the brain receives the light and it converts melatonin, which is your subconscious state of consciousness, into your wakeful state. And so that light, when you stare at it, it's an energy transfer. The same way you take some sun with your skin, you produce vitamin D and your biochemistry changes. The transfer from the sun is the electromagnetic field to your skin. When you stare at the sun in safe ways. So let me explain what the safe ways are because people are going to think you're crazy.
Like, oh my God, it's 12. I'm going to stare at the sun.
That's super dangerous. The first hour of sun or the last hour before sunset is the safe time to do sun gazing. That doesn't mean you should do it the whole hour.
Right.
When you're starting off, you do 10 seconds. The second day, you do 20 seconds. The third day, you do 30 seconds, and so on. And so what happens is that you're getting your eyes used to it, and you're also building confidence. Because if you start staring at the sun for 20, 30, or 40 seconds, you're like, am I really supposed to be doing this? Because 45 minutes after sunrise, it could get intense.
Okay.
So if you're just starting off, you might want to start in the first 20 or 30 minutes of sunrise, just so that you feel comfortable. I'm at about a half an hour now. But what you do, and you should do this without sunglasses, without glasses or contacts, because even though you're in the first hour, the safe hour, the contacts or the lenses will magnify the rays, and then you could still have problems with your retina, retinopathy. So you could burn your retina, right? And so what that does is this energy transfer to your retina, and you're producing more serotonin. And so because, as I mentioned, one is the precursor to the other. If you have more serotonin, when it's time to go to bed, you're going to have more melatonin because you have more of the... And if you change your diet and you start turkey or other like cherries, for example, cherries are really rich in tryptophan and a good precursor to melatonin.
Okay.
And so that way you'll have optimal levels of melatonin. So it sounds weird at first, and you can read about it. There's documentaries on it. Right. It took me a few times to see it. It kept popping up, and I'm like, you know what? It's the third time I see sun gazing. Let me look into it. And I started reading about it. I'm like, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And it's also like not as bad, for example, when you're doing it in the morning or at sunset, because the sun is much further away, so the light is passing through the atmosphere.
The refraction.
Exactly. Right? So if it's 11 or 12 or 1, the sun is really, really bright and heavy. Yeah. Or even like 9 or 8. Yeah.
9, sometimes 9 in the morning, and it's already so strong.
Yeah. So you want to get it when it's just coming up, so it's lighter and it's still passing through a lot of atmosphere, and it's not as intense in your eyes.
So if anybody's listening, I recommend, there's a lot of information being shared. Go back and read about it. Because I told my mom, she's like, oh, okay, yeah. And 2 weeks later, she's like, oh, I just went sun gazing. I'm like, my mom, it's an hour and a half before sunset. I told you the last hour, So, with all the information, you kind of forget, 10 seconds, 20. The fourth day I cheated and I did 3.5 minutes. Ooh. But the first 30 seconds I was blinking because I felt that the energy of the sun was strong. And after 30 seconds, that intensity kind of went away. And I'm like, oh, let me continue a few more minutes. And so, I accelerated the progress. But it's about feeling comfortable and listening to your body. If you start, you just missed, the first half an hour and it's 50 minutes into the sunrise and you're just starting off and you want to do 20 seconds. This is really strong. Like maybe wait until the next day or sunset.
Nice.
Okay. I don't want to be responsible for anybody burning their retina.
Yeah, their retina is irreplaceable.
Yeah.
So that helps you also with waking up and your sleep
energy levels. It helps with your metabolism as well because, as you just said, everything is connected, right?
Right.
So your metabolism depends on hormones, and if you're optimizing your hormones, then you're eating better. A friend of mine who's a PhD in nutrition, I asked him, "Hey Patrick, have you tried sun gazing? I just started getting into this," and he goes, "No, I heard about it, but I don't know. I have a client who says she gets her nutrition from the sun, and then I think she's a whack job. And I go, no. What happens is that when you sun gaze, you're maximizing your melatonin levels. And so if your melatonin levels are high, your cortisol is being controlled or suppressed. So you're not in an abundance of cortisol. And cortisol will ruin your metabolism because cortisol is stress, fight or flight. If you're in fight or flight, the body knows to pump the blood to your extremities to fight a bear or a lion or to run away from it, right? So this is very energy requiring to be in fight or flight all the time. So if you could suppress the cortisol, optimize the melatonin, then the enzymes stay in your internal organs rather than the blood going to the extremities, and so you could have proper digestion. Now you can only imagine people that are working in the corporate environment, super stressed all the time. Sure, they're eating 3 meals a day, but how much of their nutrients are they really absorbing? Because they're always in fight or flight. The metabolism is out of whack. The hormones are not optimized, the enzymes, the gastric acids. Right. So this is all things to take into consideration. So when I explained to him all of that, he goes, oh yeah, this makes more sense. I'll buy that one. Right. I'm like, so she eats less because she's optimizing her hormones. And I noticed when I sun gaze, my sugar cravings, which are really strong, they tend to go away.
Really? Because
I'm optimizing my hormones. And it's, dopamine, you want that dopamine rush because you have an imbalance in hormones. And so that sugar will give it to you. But if you're in equilibrium with your hormones, that you have less of that need, that necessity for the dopamine that the sugar gives you.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people will also fixate on eating more or eating more nutrients and vitamins, but they don't realize that also too, are you absorbing all of these nutrients and vitamins?
Yes.
And if you're at high stress levels, then you're not going to be absorbing. You're not going to be operating as efficiently as you can.
Yeah. So, Tiffany, a friend of ours, Tiffany, which is a nutritionist, talks about conscious eating and your emotions and your subconscious mind, your belief systems. Because you could change the diet and you can exercise, but if your mind is not aligned and you have these negative beliefs, your limiting beliefs, then you're not going to get many results.
Maybe that's also too why a lot of people who do go vegan or plant-based have an adverse reaction to it, because maybe they may be trying it, but they don't really believe in it as much. So I tried it for a month or two and didn't really sit well with me. And it's like, well, did you really you tried it, but did you really try it? Did you really get conscious about your eating and accept it? Or were you like, no, I'm going to try it and thinking it was going to fail from the beginning?
It's a big reorganization of energy to change your diet drastically like that.
Yeah, and that has to do a lot with also with the placebo, right? Like how you feel about something and how, what is the placebo effect?
The placebo is so interesting. And the nocebo as well, which is much less understood or known.
Yeah, I think a lot of people may not even know what a nocebo is.
Yeah, so placebo is believing that the pills will help you, and then you're taking these sugar pills. This is done in pharmaceutical studies. And so it's not limited to the pills, also injections and even operations. Can you believe it? And so people receive injections or like a sham operation or a mistaken operation, and they start healing the issue that they needed an operation for.
Right.
Because the mind believes that the body is healed, and so it fixes itself. Nocebo is the reverse. It's expecting to be sick, and then you become sick because you're expecting. And why is that? Because of the emotion that's associated to it. Right? Okay. And the way they established the effect of nocebo is that they had two groups, a control group that didn't read the side effects of the medication, and another group which they read all of the side effects. So arrhythmia, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, all of the ones that are usually listed. So imagine you read that, so you become conscious of that. You just have to read it once, you just become conscious of it. But every time you're taking that pill, twice a day or 3 times a day, you're reminded, or your body remembers, oh my God, am I going to get diarrhea this time? Am I going to get diarrhea this time? I'm fearful. I'm scared of these side effects. Fear puts you into the fight or flight, cortisol, adrenaline. And as I just mentioned, if you're in fight or flight, you're pumping the blood to your extremities. Your enzymes that are used for digestion are not in your digestive system. So you're not digesting properly. Your metabolism is out of whack. So you get diarrhea or constipation or all of these different symptoms.
Wow. Yeah, I think I've heard that a lot of the placebo and nocebo, well, not the nocebo, but the placebo effect has to do a lot with the stress levels, the cortisol. Because when you do have this operation, or that wasn't a real, or you take a sugar pill that you think is going to make you better, and it makes you better, once you're taking this pill, your stress levels go down because you think, oh, this is going to help me. So maybe your cortisol levels go down, and then you start becoming better because your stress levels are down.
Well, what's the emotion that you feel when you're taking a pill?
The emotion.
Hope.
Right? Okay.
You're feeling hopeful. You're feeling happy that you have a solution to your problem.
Yeah.
And eventually it'll help. So that feeling of hope is much better than that feeling of fear or stress. And this is how you're changing your biochemistry from your level of mind and your thoughts and your emotions.
Wow.
This is Candace Perth's work. She's a neuroscientist. Every emotion has a biochemical associated to it. And every emotion has a thought that originated from it. Right? So it's this whole sequence. So you think something, then you feel it, then you produce the so it's something immaterial, and then it becomes material. You know, people think thoughts are immaterial. They're very material because by association, they have a chemical or biochemical associated to them.
Oh, okay. So does emotion come first, or thought, or what's
chicken or the egg?
So like, yeah, when you have a reaction to something, I've heard some people say that it's first emotion and then thought, but some people have also told me that the opposite of thinking is feeling, because when you're feeling, you're not really thinking.
So letting go.
Letting go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the French version of mindfulness, but it's I'm having a blank right now.
Mindfulness.
Like lâcher prise, which is like letting go.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Or it's really pleine conscience, so full consciousness, but also when you're in full consciousness, you're connecting with the energy, the divine energy of your being. You're just letting go, right? When you're in your thought process, it's this whole conditioning of the mind. This is why some people have such a hard time meditating when they've never meditated before. It's like, I couldn't. Out of the 10 minutes, I think I had thoughts for 9 minutes and 45 seconds because we're so conditioned, right?
Yeah.
And when I did Vipassana, 10 days of silent meditation, you're there 9 hours per day. Eventually you'll get it. Okay, like let go of the thoughts, let go. That's all you're practicing is letting go of the thought, letting go of the thought, letting go of the thought. So eventually you're just vibrating in energy.
I've been of Vipassana in Thailand, and the way they kind of compare it is that, for example, in Western society or societies where people are constantly working all the time and are always on this movement, it's kind of like trying to stop a tractor trailer and just stop it from moving, as opposed to someone else who's more relaxed and chill, where they're a car or a bicycle or a scooter. It's much easier to stop them, but something where you have so much going on and so many things in your mind, that's hard to stop. So it's like a process.
Yeah, everybody's different, right? So I went from the app Headspace 10 minutes per day for 10 days to like a Vipassana, like in a few months. So some people they want to do mindfulness. It's too slow for them, and they'll do the Wim Hof breath, which is an active meditation.
Right.
So there's passive, there's active, there's intense ones like Vipassana, there's light ones like Headspace. Everybody will have something that's gonna call to them a bit more intensely or more efficiently. Right?
Yeah,
so the idea is just to try many things to see what's gonna stick.
What works for you? Yeah, it's like trying different instruments, trying different sports. Everyone has different wants and desires and needs and things that resonate more with them. So
parents do that with their kids. They'll put them in piano lessons, then soccer, then a different instrument, then another sport or karate, and then well, they didn't like that, so we let that go, and they love this. So then we're the same. We just try things and we'll see what sticks.
I like that a lot. It's different for different people. And so in terms of the binaural, I just learned about this before the podcast. Can you talk about how it works? Binaural beats.
I don't really use them, but I know that they work. It's the differential of 5 hertz between the right and the left ear. That's why you need headphones more than just your laptop that's got a speaker.
And you also said that the AirPods are not really good to use.
Yeah, so I've watched several documentaries on electromagnetic fields and how they affect your DNA and cause mutations. So the wireless AirPods connect with the phone or the source, the laptop, but they also connect with each other, and so the electromagnetic energy goes through your brain. I did a post about the 3 documentaries. One is Generation Zapped, one is Resonance, Beings of Frequency, and the third one escapes me right now, but if I think of it, I'll mention it. So binaural beats is having 5 hertz differential in both ears, and so this differential will change your brain waves. There's also solfeggio frequencies.
What is it?
Solfeggio frequencies. Depending on the emotion, it'll play at a specific frequency, and then you get entrainment, and then your mind and your emotional body will start to get entrained by that solfeggio frequencies, that frequency. And then there's isochronic tones, which theoretically I know the least, but experientially I know the most because I listened to them, and my head just started shifting as when I do my Kriya in the morning and I produce DMT endogenously. The body reacted the same way. So I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I didn't get scared, but some people might get scared.
Right.
Just like in a CAP, Kundalini activation process, it's kind of like massage energy movement that the practitioner will do, and your body sometimes will shake or whatnot, and they're just raising energy. I do this myself every morning, so I wasn't taken back by it. So isochronic tones, I also know from Jamie Wheel that it's the sounds that have the most research done on them. That's probably why I don't do binaural beats.
Okay.
But I went along with the isochronic tones. On YouTube, I found a video, isochronic tones, Schumann resonance. Put that on because it caught my attention, the Schumann resonance, and my body started reacting in a way like it just aligning with frequency. So I didn't mention what I can go back to Schumann resonance, but entrainment is also important to know.
Okay.
So entrainment is this rubbing off of a frequency onto another. So if you have a tuning fork and you smash it, or you don't smash it, but you hit it on the table, the other tuning fork will start to vibrate in the same frequency.
Right.
And us, because we're resonance or beings of resonance and frequency, the same thing happens. So your heart has a frequency. Frequency is the waves in a second, right? And so if you have in your hospital, you see the statistics and you see the heartbeat, brain waves, heartbeat, everything is frequency, right? And so Heartmath Institute continued this work from Ishtak Bedtov in the 70s. He was way ahead of his time. And he talked about physics, and he was an engineer of the consciousness. And so they continued his work, and he had connected a ballistograph, which is measuring the waves according to the body as an energetic physical system. And so Heartmath Institute started measuring the heartbeat to the millisecond. And they started doing different tests according to emotions. So heart rate variability is the heart rate that varies, but it's not looking at it after the whole minute, but it's looking at it between every second, the millisecond. And then it has a value, and then it assesses a heartbeat at every second of the minute. Then they can see if there's variations within that minute, right? Okay. Simple?
Yeah.
Right. So then they started associating the emotion of the person with the heart rate variability. So if there's high heart rate variability, the heart rate is varying a lot. And that usually comes with unstable emotions like fear, anger, stress. And when you can establish your emotions, calm them down and have higher levels or higher emotions, then you're establishing lower heart rate variability, which is heart coherence, they called. And so then they started doing these experiments where people were sitting down and not meditating, and people next to them were meditating, and the person not meditating was having heart coherence, even though they weren't meditating. Their emotional state was shifting, or their heartbeat was shifting.
So they were like a tuning fork.
Exactly. And so when we know this, then we know that everything affects us, and the higher our energy or our vibration, the less we'll be affected. If we have a low vibration, then we're easily affected by other people's energies, right? And I was mentioning last year, in 2020, there was a lot of fear. Fear was so pervasive.
Yeah.
And so you could say, well, I never feared the virus. Right. But did you fear anything else? Did you fear your parents or grandparents dying because they don't have a strong immune system like yours? Did you fear the government because it was stripping you your rights and your liberties? And that was my fear. I noticed everything that was happening, and like, we're not free anymore. We can't do what we want anymore all of a sudden, right? And so it's so pervasive that it rubs off of you. And I think it was the folks at Heartmath Institute that measured the Schumann resonance, which is kind of like the heart coherence of the earth when Lady Diana died. And because the whole world was going through this sorrow, the emotional state of but most human beings was emanating from their bodies, and it was affecting the Schumann resonance. So I should probably explain what the Schumann resonance is.
Yeah, explain it.
As I mentioned, it's the frequency of the earth, and it's reverberations. So you've got the earth, and then you've got the ionosphere around the earth, and you have reverberations of frequencies and energy that travels through the earth. And so the Schumann resonance is 7.83 hertz. This scientist called Schumann discovered this.
7.83
hertz.
Okay.
Yes. And sometimes it fluctuates for various reasons. As I mentioned, the collective emotional state of humanity, for example, because the heart has a magnetic field away from our body. So this, if you magnify it with everybody on earth, it's going to impact the Schumann resonance. Solar
Wow.
flares also, so explosions, kind of like a volcano. The sun is always spewing out fire, right? But if there's a volcano of fire, which is like a huge burst of energy facing the earth will feel that, and the Schumann resonance will fluctuate.
Like a sun flare.
Yeah, and this affects our nervous system because we have everything is connected, right? It's been the theme of the podcast.
Yeah.
Everything is connected. Our nervous system connects with the Schumann resonance. And I'm from Montreal, and in Montreal a couple of summers ago, there was 3 stabbing cases in the same weekend. And the newspaper said, it's likely that the coincidence is because of the heat wave. I'm like, heat wave? And I started researching this, and yes, heat can raise the aggression in the emotional state of human beings, which heat comes from the sun. So the energy transfer from the sun in higher abundance or excess will raise the aggression levels in human beings.
Wow.
Or can, not will, but can.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially people maybe who are vibrating on a lower frequency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
From their mental construct and their childhood and their environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so some people might be more impulsive, and then they act in and they have these stabbings.
Mm-hmm.
But then I thought that was so interesting. And so the energy from the sun is affecting our emotional state, and our emotional state is connected to our nervous system, right? So our nervous system connects with the Schumann resonance.
Okay.
And so in February of 2020, February 27th specifically, I have an aunt who's an astrologer who studied Ayurveda, who is very healthy, eats organic. She meditates every day. She's very connected to her body.
Mm-hmm.
She felt her whole skin burning the whole day. She's like, what the hell's going on? She goes online to research because I don't think any doctor would know, or that's not true.
Yeah.
Probably a very small percentage of doctors
Yeah.
would know what the Schumann resonance is. Some doctors are pretty curious and not following the system of med school. But she felt her whole body burning, and she went online and she found a guy in the Black Forest in Germany explaining that he felt something similar, and he found a Russian website that reports the Schumann resonance. And it had peaked at to 100. So when it fluctuates, it goes from 7.83 to 14, goes back to 7.83,
double.
21, 170, like 10,
What?
like, yeah, huge, right? More than 10 times.
That's crazy.
And so I was reading the comments on that video, and somebody said, I was feeling very angry, very out of character of me. I didn't know why. It's not my personality to be so angry. Thank you for this video. It might explain why I was feeling that way. Another person wrote, I was lethargic in bed all day, had no energy. I don't know what the hell was going on. And that peak in the Schumann resonance can be why I didn't notice anything, or maybe I did, but I didn't make the correlation. But everybody has different nervous system from different mental accumulations and a different construct. Somebody who's more anxious, somebody who's more calm, they might be more or less affected by the Schumann resonance. But this does affect our system.
Wow.
And so this is what I want to mention. Yeah, it's important that we know that sometimes we might be in a different state of mind and emotion, but it could be because of the sun. It could be because of things that are bigger than our little environment of our house or our argument with somebody in our family.
I wonder what the Schumann resonance is like when the whole pandemic or this whole lockdown started. Like if it was measured, if it's like 100 or 200 or like the changes in the Schumann resonance with the fear going on.
Well, yeah. So February 27th was right before the lockdowns were announced in March.
Okay.
And it was at 170. But then if you look at the Schumann resonance throughout the year after that,
Right.
it fluctuated a lot. So the energy was very volatile.
Okay.
Some people were empowered. Some people were, totally destroyed, and then they had to redefine themselves, reinvent themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But emotionally, it was very difficult, right? And actually, there's another thing I wanted to mention that, and you can research on Heartmath, and Greg Braden talks a lot about this,
Okay.
about how before an event can happen, the Schumann resonance of the emotion. Like when there's a storm that's coming, birds start to act up
Yeah.
because they don't have the thinking process that kind of ruins us sometimes because we think too much. But if you just feel, like you said before, the feeling, right, of just letting go of the thought and just feeling, animals have this sixth sense of thing, like, shit's about to hit the fan, right? We could have that too, but we have been so conditioned to thinking that we've let go of the feeling, the intuition, and the gut feeling, right?
Right.
So if there's something major that would be happening in the world, the Schumann resonance also could be affected. And I think it was September 10th, 2001, where there was a major fluctuation, a day before September 11th attacks.
Wow.
So kind of a day before that was going to happen, there was this information in the field of our existence that kind of knew or felt, just like the way animals feel storms that are about to come, even though the storm isn't there yet.
I wonder if there's a way to get more in tune with that. Maybe, I guess, neurohacking, right?
Meditation, deep meditations, hypnosis.
There's all. I think a lot of animals, we like to think of them as more primitive, but they're actually a lot more intelligent in a different way than we are.
Yeah. I mean, a dog is way more conscious than you are on smells, right?
Yeah.
People will say, well, humans are the most conscious beings on earth. With what respect? It depends on what you're talking about.
How you measure intelligence, how you measure consciousness.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what is the way that people measure, like, what do you think is the best metric for consciousness? Is it different for everybody, or is it how you think, your emotional intelligence, or is it a combination of everything? And does neurohacking help with that, or
Yeah, neurohacking helps with developing emotional intelligence, and I think emotional intelligence is like the new gold, right?
Yeah.
Like before, it was maybe physical strength, hundreds of years ago, and now it's education and knowledge. Right? Right. You do a PhD and you stand out in society, but with the age of information now and everything online and Wikipedia and resources and videos and courses, everybody has access to this information. And so if you're a PhD, it's kind of like, oh, I'm kind of like everybody else now. Not really. I mean, it's still very valid. But I think in the future, the people who will have most success are the people who have emotional intelligence, who can develop that, who have tools, who bring it to another level.
And what part of the brain controls like emotion? Is it the amygdala? Is it
the amygdala is the stress response? Yeah.
Stress response.
So that's a very important one, where the emotions are really intense, and so that sends the signal to your adrenals to produce adrenaline and cortisol, so that you could have all of the other functions follow. Your pupils to dilate, your heart to pump blood to extremities, you're metabolizing stored energy because you need that energy.
Okay.
And the reason why we get sweaty when we have a hot date or we have a job interview or a presentation is because your heart is pumping blood to the extremities and you're creating a combustion. Just like the car, you're going to use gasoline and oxygen to create a combustion, generate energy and movement, and then you're going to touch the engine and it's going to be hot.
Right.
The body does the same thing. It's using storage of energy. When you have excess food that you're eating, you store energy, and then when you need it at a later date, like in a time of stress, you're breaking it down with oxygen. That's why your respiration rate goes up, because you need more oxygen to burn down those stores of fat to generate energy, and then you get sweaty hands and sweaty feet because that's heat and movement.
Okay. Nice. I didn't know that. So, and then in the terms of how humans are different from animals, or how we've developed this part of the brain called the neocortex.
Yeah.
And that has
the prefrontal cortex.
What does that control mostly? The thinking, the logical side? Is that what we're using mostly of?
Creativity, will, planning, time, right?
Right.
And so when they did lobotomies in the last century, they were putting a scalpel through the eye socket. For patients that had mental diseases.
Oh,
right?
They would drill into their skull.
No, they would use a scalpel and they would enter it through the eye socket, the orbital bone right here underneath, and they would kind of swoosh the prefrontal cortex to see if they can heal the mental disorder that the patient had.
That's crazy.
But then you had people who became very monotonous, very repetitive, lack of energy, lethargic, no will. So the will that we have, the free will, comes from the prefrontal cortex. And when you meditate, you can kind of reorganize your brainwaves to combine your creative side, both sides of the brain, the creative and the analytical, and quiet down the thinking brain, which is an overthinking brain, which kind of like ruins our gut feeling, right? And so that's how you can have amazing ideas when you slow down that process. There was, I think, Edison was the one who would intentionally alter his brainwaves by having a metal ball and this tin plate, and it would make a noise. So he would sit on his chair and he would kind of doze off. He dozed off, and then he would drop that ball and it would wake him up, and then he would hack his subconscious and he'd have great creative ideas because he was neurohacking back in the day, right?
Yeah.
One of the most primitive forms of neurohacking.
I like that. That's good. There's so many different techniques, and we think that neurohacking is a new thing, but I feel that maybe a lot of the great minds like Nikola Tesla and all these people had a way to be able to neurohack and to improve their efficiency and how they operated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, we all have so some people develop that, and some people are born with it, right? Some people have gifts. Some people see things when they're kids, and then the parents tell them, no, that's just crazy. You're not seeing any ghosts or any aura. I could see the aura, the color around you. Is like, that's impossible.
Right.
And then that kid will suppress that because they believe their parents, and that's impossible. I can't be seeing colors, and they grew up as adults, and they've just lost that natural gift that they could see the aura, the color around the person.
Yeah.
But you could also develop that skill knowingly. You could do these exercises to kind of increase your vision or your field of perception and consciousness, right? Which is what that is.
Yeah, I think, for example, the way that bees can see a different color and like ultraviolet or something, and humans can. But I think there's definitely things like we said with frequency. So I've met people who have said, well, at least say that they can see people's frequency auras,
Yeah.
and I put it through the test where they will say, oh, this person has this color, and then that same person, some other stranger will come in and they'll say that, oh, this is your color and this your frequency. It's similar to this person, not knowing that they actually had, spent the night together and worked together. So maybe that's why they had the same frequency. But without knowing this, he was able to match their aura and their frequency.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. This one guy I met here in Tulum, he did that. I was like, man, maybe I don't know if I believe it, but wow, there's something to it. There's something interesting about that. And
we got to stay open when people tell us things. It's possible, like who am I to judge that that's impossible?
And I went to, have you been to the astral projection in Ecole with Bobby Klein?
No, but that sounds interesting too. I wanted to do that.
What he does is he kind of matches people based off their aura.
Oh.
So before everyone gets started with the breathwork and the Kundalini exercise and the astral projection, he will say, okay, well, it's going to take about 10 minutes and I'm going to match every person with a person who's with similar energy or a matching energy. And he checks your aura and he matches you based off your aura, which is interesting. It's crazy.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that these things that I've been questioning. I'm kind of, with the whole movement and the CAP, the Kundalini activation process. I met people that I believe that I've never done it myself, but that have gone through it, and you've gone through it, and not even the Kundalini, but the different ways that energy can influence and move your body. So I think, a lot of people may be listening who've never even heard of this. I think it's like not real. I think it's like super interesting that when you get here, you see people who have done it and who have experienced it, and it's interesting.
Yeah, it opens up their minds and their consciousness.
Yeah. So in terms of what other techniques are there for I mean, there's so many neurohacking techniques, right?
Yeah, meditation is a good one. It's probably the cheapest one, right? Anybody can do it because you're not outsourcing. You're taking charge and control of your system. Hypnosis, either with a therapist or auto-hypnosis, right? Which you're changing your brain. So hypnobirthing is that. Hypnobirthing is super interesting. The woman who's pregnant can learn throughout the months of her pregnancy and prepare to enter a trance state or an altered state of consciousness.
Okay.
So that she's not going to put all the attention on the pain. Because if you put the focus on the pain, you're going to intensify it. Right. And then the biochemicals will follow. So you're going to have a surge of cortisol and adrenaline. But if you could not suppress, because that's not going to work, but transcend. Right?
Okay.
So the best way I could explain this is I did the Camino de Santiago, the pilgrim walk in Spain, where you walk 500 kilometers.
500
in
kilometers.
A month. There's these hostels and
okay.
It's all set up. It's like this very famous walk, a pilgrimage
for a whole month.
Some people do it for 2 months. They start in France and they finish in Spain. Some people start at the border and they finish in Santiago de Compostela, the city. And it's been going on for hundreds of years. People do it either for religious reasons, because there's a lot of churches, spiritual reasons to reconnect with the self, athletic reasons, there's to work out, and then the other reason can be for socializing.
Yeah, Bobby Klein has his thing where he's measuring auras and he matches people with their energies, and amazing guy. And I think that auras and energy levels are something that a lot of people really don't take into account, but that are, maybe science doesn't have the instruments right now to measure it, but I mean, if you feel it, if someone else can see it and it's real to them and it's an experience for them, then how is it not real? Yeah. So
we were talking about other ways to neurohack, and I was mentioning meditation, hypnosis, hypnobirthing, and the Camino de Santiago. So the four ways that a person, or the four intentions a person would want to do the Camino de Santiago is spiritual, religious, sports, athletic, or just to socialize. Because you meet interesting people outside of the box. Right?
Yeah.
And so when I was at my last week of the month, the whole month that I was walking, my right ankle was swollen. And I noticed that 15-20 minutes after beginning the day, I didn't feel the pain anymore. And ending my day, the pain would come back. It never left. It's because my awareness or consciousness or focus would go elsewhere. Either a conversation with somebody else walking next to me or the scenery. And so that's what made me realize our pain is manifested through our minds, right? And so if a woman is about to give birth or in a few months, and it's thought to be a painful process, if you can hack your brain, self-hypnotize, learn how to enter in that trance state of consciousness, then you're not going to focus on the pain. And so that's a way to ease the process, because if you're going to focus on it, the baby will receive the cortisol and the adrenaline through the umbilical cord. The more adrenaline you produce, because the more you're stressed, because the more you're putting focus on the pain, the more the baby receives that, intense biochemistry.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And another thing, epidurals contain, not codeine, but it contains opioids.
Right.
Epidurals contain opioids, and babies that are born of epidurals are more likely to be to have addictive personalities because they've received a dose of chemicals, external chemicals that were meant to suppress the pain, but then it messes up with your neurochemistry and your mental development.
Yeah, that's such a big part. I mean, I think so many people take these this epidural and these drugs when they're giving birth, and they don't realize
it's the easy way.
Yeah.
Right?
So you think more of natural birth.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then maybe doing some hypnotherapy before, or just changing your state of mind.
Hypnobirthing. But if you're a guy and you want to know how to neurohack, meditation, self-hypnosis, listening to the binaural beats, isochronic tones, or solfeggio frequencies is a good way.
Yeah,
there's just so many, right?
Yeah, so
there's
all
change your diet a bit.
There's all these external ways to neurohack. Now, there's also a ways to just internalize and produce. We may take a lot of these nootropics, or maybe use sound. What we talked about, binaural beats, and changing up your diet and food, and taking certain drugs like ayahuasca or mushrooms. But there's also a way to neurohack your body from the inside, from without external.
Yeah. So I do this kriya where I produce DMT endogenously.
Really?
DMT, dimethyltryptamine.
Yeah.
Which is very similar to melatonin and serotonin.
Okay.
And so a bit like a chemistry lab, you could put in a beaker different chemicals, but if you don't have any energy or heat, there's no conversion made. But if you have the Bunsen burner, the flame, the heat, you start to make chemical reactions. The body's the same way. And so if you can raise your level of energy, you can start converting melatonin or serotonin to DMT. They practically have the same structure. You just shift a chemical or two, a little molecule or part of the molecule. And you can do this through breath work. When you do the breath of fire breath, or the holotropic breath that Wim Hof teaches, you're raising the levels of energy. That's why when you do fire breath, you get sweaty. You're activating the sympathetic nervous system. You're breathing. And because of the Om chanting, you're getting more oxygen out of your breath. Then you have higher levels of energy. And then you can convert that chemical. And if you have your eyes closed, sometimes I see fractals. I see hallucinations or vivid imagery. I see elements, like blue gold, like this very shiny blue material that I've never seen before. You see patterns, kaleidoscope. You're downloading information. You're raising your energy, which then expands your mind. And you remember I was talking about how thought process, and if you have higher levels of energy, then you could start seeing things in a different way. You download information. You have more intuition. Things start to align in your life, right? From that DMT.
Start to deprogram all your social programming and things that you were taught to believe in, or to look things at a certain way.
Everything is that. Everything is social construction and programming. And if you start to undo that, even your name was a social construction from your parents. Right. You're just this ball of energy, but your name is given to you by your parents. even time is an illusion, right? Because if you're in the quantum physics of proton, electron, and the atom, there's no time, right? It's just energy. Right? So
Yeah, I think
it's not, the linear part, I mean, is a man-made construct, and that's why Einstein said it was relative. Because if you are seeing somebody move at this angle, 90 degree, and then, or if you're at a different angle, the time space is different, right? And so that's why it's relative.
Yeah, everyone experiences time differently. Like, I think he also said that someone who puts their hand on a hot stove will experience that time like 1 second can feel like a minute or two, as opposed to where you're having a great conversation or you're hanging out with a beautiful person and a date. An hour can feel like a few minutes. Just fly by so fast.
Depending on your level of consciousness and your interests and your desires and your social construction. If you go to opera and you're like, oh my God, that 3 hours was so long. And somebody who's like an obsessed fan of opera will say, that felt like 10 minutes. It went by so fast. It's the 3 hours. The 3 hours is the construct, and then the level of consciousness and your constructions are different. So
I like that.
Ever since I started meditating, it's very rare that I say, oh, that afternoon flew by, or time flies. I never say that anymore. Time flies, no. Nor do I say, oh my God, it's like, can we get on with this? Time is so slow. Like, it's just, I don't know. I just have a different relationship with time now.
Yeah. So how do you experience time then? What's your experience with with maybe not time, but duration, I guess people call it, or just life? And how do you experience life now that
vibing, energy, frequencies, connections, like that takes much more space than time. And I guess I'm in the right place. If we're in Mexico, people are just free flowing with time and not so
not so
rigid, attached. No more watch. We still have time on our phone, but
right. I think I guess that's good for maybe synchronizing maybe a lot. Like I guess if you want to meet someone at a certain, like for example, we met at a certain time because we have to synchronize our time together, our meeting point in space and time. But in terms of where you're experiencing life, it's not something that you should attach yourself to. This concept of time.
There's this interesting thing that I read when talking about altered states of consciousness and neurohacking. When we have an orgasm, right? What? Before that, I'll ask you a question. Why do you think society is so hyper-sexualized? The way the female body is used, or porn addictions.
Why do I think it's hyper-sexualized
and unhealthy?
I would say because why is it hyper-sexualized? I think it's also hyper-sexualized on just females too, because you don't really see men being hyper-sexualized. Men have but are notoriously addicted to porn. Well, no, I'm saying that we hyper-sexualize the female body, and then men are addicted to that, but we don't see like men and porn addiction is a form of hyper-sexualization. Right. Would you agree? Yeah, of course. Okay. So men too have their. I mean, it's everything is connected, like we keep saying. So. Okay. But one reason is religion prohibits it. Right. Even though people are not so religious anymore, or religion is kind of going down, the social and cultural effect of religion in the past generations have remained, right? Because your parents were religious, or your grandparents, and then the double standard, for example, in society still remains because of that. It's just hard to change, right? Yeah. It's possible, but it takes a lot of. So the prohibition of sex, you can't do of the act, makes you want it more. Exactly, and also the other thing is during the time of orgasm, we experience this short moment of timelessness and egolessness, right? Time stops for a few moments, and that moment is just energy, and it feels so good for the soul that because we are not meditating since the age of 6, some of us, the lucky ones that had hippie parents, but because we don't really have access to those altered states of consciousness, now it's raising, but people in the old ways don't have those moments. They only have them through orgasms, and so they want it so bad because it feels so good for the soul that's why they get obsessed with that feeling, that emotion. But if you were to meditate or produce DMT endogenously and have these moments of bliss and ecstasy, then your relationship or your perception of sex and orgasms would be different. It's something that you absolutely need because you've never had it before, or you don't have any other ways of attaining it. But it's something that you want, and wanting and needing are two different things. If you need, you might make some mistakes, in your ways of either choosing a partner or your actions. But if you want, then it becomes much more divine and wholesome, right? I like that.
So
Yeah, and definitely the sexual energy, or the, what is it, in the sacral chakra, is I think one of the most powerful forms of energies, is the energy to be able to create life.
yeah.
And being able to channel that with tantra or some other techniques that I've heard some people talk about here in Tulum. It's really interesting.
Yeah, preserving that creative force and transmuting it. I mean,
Transmuting,
one thing is to do that, but if you don't have any tools, and you're just gonna do no fapping, and then you're sexually frustrated, and you get aggressive, and your testosterone, all
That's
of
a
that
good
is
point,
to be
yeah.
taken into consideration.
Yeah.
You need techniques. You need to do it in a healthy way. Just like you were talking about, changing your diet, and then it didn't work, it didn't resonate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because maybe your level of consciousness and your tools weren't optimized.
I like that.
But when you can align all of that, that's when magic starts to happen. Your logical mind and your emotional mind, your creative mind, you start generating and manifesting a new reality.
I think that we need more of this schooling, this way of schooling of being able to tap into so much potential from the inside, and maybe not looking so much in the external. I mean, I know there's a lot of techniques for neurohacking or biohacking that requires changing diet, that requires certain chemicals or drugs like coffee and tea, and
We all have the power from within.
yeah, we all have that inner, and that's what I think maybe not everyone is realizing, but I've been realizing when I've been doing these podcasts, is that a lot of the power to heal yourself, a lot of power to get better, it comes from, I think you have that ability. Like the gurus and even doctors are just maybe a guide or way for you to heal yourself, whether
Yeah.
it's something external.
The way I like to do it is I just share a tool, and then you're responsible for that tool. If you don't want, if it resonated, if it didn't, if you want to find another tool, I share theory and practice. But if you don't do any work,
Mhm.
then they're unlikely to have any evolution. I mean, you could have like a near-death experience, or one sharp event, or a depression, or a breakup, and then it's gonna jolt you into like a new level of consciousness. But if you do these exercises every day, then you're slowly evolving, and you don't need the trauma to grow. You could just align.
Yeah. So
yourself.
so you also do events here in Tulum and other places around the world. So what do your events look like for people who don't know or maybe are interested?
So I do workshops where I explain the nervous system, the molecules of emotions, the physics of the body, like Ishtak Bentov had shared. My experiences in the pharmaceutical industry and in the medical equipment industry.
Okay.
I also worked in medical skincare, so DNA mutations in the skin and how to avoid or reduce. It's impossible to avoid DNA mutations.
What do you think about sunscreen? What's your opinion on sunscreen?
I think my opinion will be very controversial,
Right.
but I stopped using sunscreen.
I also too, but I
yeah.
tell people, but I don't know why.
Which is the same way I wouldn't stare at the sun at noon. I wouldn't put myself in the sun from 11 to 2 in the afternoon, because that's the strongest.
Okay.
That's when you burn the most. But sunscreens, there's two different types. I used to work at SkinCeuticals, which is a medical skincare line, and we were big on sunscreens. There's physical blocks and chemical blocks.
Okay.
Physical are the minerals, titanium dioxide, zinc oxide, and the chemical blocks, avobenzone and whatnot. But so many have been controversial down the line. And then, oops, we had to remove that product because it caused health issues. And then this is the new one we have. And then 2 years, oops, this one too. And then it's always like I just want to avoid the oops and just not go down that route. And then the physical one, people will say, well, there's no absorption of the chemicals, but there can still be systemic absorption of the minerals, and they're micronized. So titanium dioxide is like what the lifeguards put on their nose, that white paste, which is not very sexy for most people that go to the beach, right? Unless you're the surfer who really needs to protect yourself.
Yeah.
That's really thick and won't absorb. So I would say that's fine, but it's unlikely that people will start to use that. So they have these micronization processes to turn these particles into nanoparticles so that it's more fluid, it's got an elegant texture. But the thing is, and one doctor asked me, what's the size of your nanoparticles in the titanium dioxide? And I'm like, why is he asking that? His wife was trying to copy our sunscreen, and my boss told me that. And then I started looking into it, and I'm like, why? Because there's controversy. And so heavy metals in the body are very toxic to your neurology, because metal conducts electricity. But if you have metal that doesn't belong in the body, that's there, like aluminum and mercury, for example, and titanium dioxide and zinc oxide, if there's systemic absorption, it's going to be in your body, and then you need to detox and get rid of those metals. Otherwise, they start messing with your neurology, right?
Right.
And so that's why I would just prefer not to use any sunscreen and be responsible with the sun, wear long sleeves, or just not expose myself in the dangerous hours of the sun, just like I wouldn't sun gaze at noon.
All right, cool. Yeah. So, yeah, what else? Your events and your classes that you have. So you started, yeah, with skin. You were in this company, and then
So like I'll explain, the biochemistry of the body, what I've learned in my pharmaceutical days. I used to work in natural products. It was really difficult to convince doctors in Canada to use natural products,
really.
but the gastroenterologists, they were desperate for solutions because their products had been removed for health issues, arrhythmia. They were desperate for dyspepsia, bloating, acid reflux, and I was promoting these herbal drops from Germany, Iberogast it was called, and it had huge success. So that's why I learned where the stress comes from the gut, and serotonin receptors, 80% of them are in the gut, and that's where your serotonin factory mainly is. So the gut is so important, right? But type A personalities and stressed out people have an issue with that, and so their cortisol, serotonin, everything I was mentioning earlier, melatonin levels, is all out of balance. And so everything in my career has brought me to where I am now and gave me the understanding that I can share in my workshops. Then people are like, oh, that's interesting, I didn't know that, or yeah, my diet, no wonder my metabolism. So I just like to share things that can change and help people heal, and then I share tools at the end of the workshop that people can kind of memorize and do at home, like a meditation or one active and passive meditations. The passive, I put a song or music, mellow music, in case the person has a hard time detaching from thought. And then in the active meditation, I don't put any music, and it's just you on your own with the power inside that you have to change your biochemistry,
Right.
and to raise levels of energy and to start changing your reality.
Nice. I like that you facilitate a space where people can look inward and start focusing on themselves and healing themselves.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, yeah. So, do you have any other practices or tips for people that you recommend or anything like that? No?
I mentioned a few that I do, like Sungazing is my favorite,
Sungazing.
and then this Kriya that I do.
Okay.
Those
Nice.
are pretty interesting ones.
And what are your future plans? What are you gonna do? Do you have any?
I'm thinking about creating a hypnobirthing course and putting it online, explaining more in detail the science, the epidural, the cortisol, adrenaline, because I think the reason why I started doing these neurohacking workshops was for the corporate world. I left the corporate world; it was so toxic. That's why I did Vipassana. Actually, I had a really toxic boss, and then I thought we could share these tools to people in the corporate world. But the older you get, the harder it is to remove the kinks, the social constructions. It's possible. It's definitely possible to change, but it's hard. Then I thought maybe you could teach kids and the caregivers why it's so important to connect with breath and to cut this vicious loop of emotion and thought. You asked me which one comes first, but we get into these loops, right? And you need to cut the loop. So you need tools to cut the loop. And then I like to go deeper and deeper all the time. That's why I go to the quantum level, right? But then I'm like, can we go further and remove the trauma or the stress even further than childhood? Yes, during pregnancy. Because if there's trauma during pregnancy, this is going to affect the neurological development and the personality of the adult, right? There's a study in 1968 in Israel, because of the war, that showed that schizophrenia was in higher incidences because the mothers had acute stress, right? So that stress caused a developmental issue in the brains of the future adults. So there's trauma that can happen even before birth.
Right.
And it's a branch of epigenetics called genomic imprinting. That information goes into the egg and the sperm before there's even fertilization.
Wow.
Right.
That's crazy.
And so you want to enhance your environment epigenetically even before you start producing your sperm or your eggs. So the idea is like hypnobirthing course, maybe like a course on neurohacking for caregivers of kids, to do little metaphors, just like a little seed of consciousness. And you don't need to know what meditation really is, but just for 5 minutes, connect with the breath, so that when they're teenagers and somebody teaches them meditation, they won't feel so like, oh, what's this? Oh yeah, I can go with this. Like this makes sense, as opposed to like, no, I want to play my video games and this is not for me.
Yeah.
Because somebody went in their childhood planted the seed of connecting with the breath.
Nice. What I wonder, why is the breath such a big part of healing yourself or achieving these higher levels of consciousness with like the Wim Hof and all these breathing breathwork classes? What is it? Is it more oxygen?
Energy, yeah. The field, like I was talking to somebody and she said, I just think water is life, which it is. But if you go deeper than water, you've got H2O, but H2O is 2 hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom, right? So go deeper than water. There's air, and you can't live 40 days or more without food. supposedly there's these negative beliefs, but some people are doing breatharian.
Yeah.
But you know, most of us at the average level of consciousness, we can't live more than 40 days without food. You can't live more than 4, 5, 6 days without water.
I spent 6 days without food or water.
Right.
But
I'm talking about the average, right? And then you can't spend more than 4 minutes without air,
Right.
you know, for the average person.
Average
So the most important of all three is really air.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Air, yeah.
And so our
yeah.
mind and oxygen and energy is mainly based on that. If you can hack your breath and your breath rhythm, then you can hack your mind.
Wow.
Every emotion has a breath pattern. How do you breathe when you're fed up?
And I'm like,
You sigh, exactly.
yeah,
Right.
I'm and here all the time.
It's not voluntary, it's involuntary. It's the
Yeah.
nervous system, it's the subconscious mind. It's like you're breathing heavily because you're nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we need to reset. You've just changed your breath pattern. Your mind is looking out for you.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Subconsciously, yeah.
If you're in love, how do you breathe? Long and subtle, exactly. You almost can't perceive it. If you're
Right.
stressed and you're fearful,
Like, yeah.
exactly.
Dancing, like,
Right? These are 3 examples, but every emotion has a breath pattern associated to it.
I've never seen a chart on any of that. Just make a chart.
Right? But we know. I mean,
Yeah,
I've just told you, like, yeah, that makes sense. That's true. I sigh. You know, like I've
Right.
caught myself sighing before.
Yeah, but I've never seen that.
And so the oxygen is really the energy in it. If you could change the rhythm or control the rhythm, you can control your subconscious mind and your autonomic nervous system. And actually, somebody told me in the word respiration is spirit. Right?
And there's what?
In respiration, you could find
Spirit.
the root of spirit.
How? No way.
Spirit, respirate. You know, if you could see hidden etymology,
Yeah.
you could see that. And so your spirit comes from your respiration. When your spirit leaves, there's no more respiration. You're dead.
Wow.
Right? And then when you do this breath work, like the holotropic, you're producing different neurochemicals, and then you're having altered states of consciousness. Your spirit is kind of getting an upgrade, and your evolution is increasing. Right?
I like that.
You're
Yeah,
advancing.
when you stop breathing, that's it. It's done.
In the body.
In the
right?
body, yeah.
Then-
Well, in the spirit, maybe you're restarting.
Yeah, in a different body eventually,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I also think that, for example, I mean, I don't know about breatharians, but breathing has a lot of, like, for example, in the atmosphere, air, it has already 4, like our bodies are made up 96 or 97% of 4 elements. It's carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, right? Which are all abundant in the air that we breathe. So when you take a breath, you're breathing in 96 to 97% of what you are already made of.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then 1% is phosphorus, 1% is calcium. But when if you think about it, if your body can maybe metabolize even the elements in the air, you're basically getting 97% of what you are.
There's energy in the atom, right?
Right.
Some people don't know this. They just think proton, electron, and the electron rotates around the proton. What's between the proton and electron?
Energy?
Electromagnetic energy. When you
okay.
breathe faster, you're getting more of that energy from the atoms of oxygen.
Right.
Right? And that you're making energy that's outside of you yours. It's just this transfer, right? And so that's how you can raise your levels, and then you have more energy.
I guess that's why also air quality is so important, right? What do you recommend? Like, what do you recommend for people maybe getting air things in their house, air not humidifiers, but purifiers, or should you just go out in nature and more nature stuff?
Nature's got to be the best way, right?
The best, trees, right? I mean, we're getting oxygen from the trees.
When you're at the trees, the beach, you know, the wind from the ocean, it's not contaminated. It's just pure air.
Well, the ocean is become really contaminated now. I saw Seaspiracy and how we're just destroying the ocean. But that's another. And I think people have said that the majority of the oxygen that we get comes from the ocean. I think more than even the Amazon, the rainforests in the world, that the oxygen that we get of the earth comes from oceans. And it's sad that what we're doing to the oceans. But yeah, I mean, being by the beach also too. I'd say that, like, when I go to the beach and I get in the water, I feel almost healing property. But also, I never thought of it like this, but thinking about oxygen and air quality, being in the ocean, breathing in that wind that's coming in from the ocean, maybe that's a part of the healing.
There's another thing, and I just remember the other documentary on electromagnetic energy.
Yeah.
Which is the science of grounding.
Grounding. Okay.
Electrons that are in the earth. So the ionosphere is positively charged and the earth is negatively charged.
Right.
That's the differential that causes lightning, right? Energy flowing. And so the earth has electrons. And when you connect barefoot with the earth, you're getting electrons that reduce the inflammation, because inflammation comes from mutations. Reactive oxygen species. So oxygen gets energy from the sun and cleaves, which means it separates. And the electrons, now you have free radicals. So an oxygen atom rather than an oxygen molecule of two atoms, one of them is very reactive and it'll take an electron from your DNA, causing a DNA mutation, and then the oxygen calms down. Now your DNA is mutated.
Right.
But when you get electrons from the earth and when you sleep well and your melatonin repairs that, then you're fine, right? When you're at the beach or when you're walking barefoot, you're getting electrons from the earth, which reduces the inflammation in your body. And where the water meets the land is where there's the most electrons, because water conducts electricity, right? So all of the electrons in the seabed get conducted to the border of land. And this is why a lot of natural birthing happen at the beach. Maybe not here, but I've seen online in many, in Spanish is partera, like these doulas or midwives that assist pregnancy, like a natural birth in the water, right at the border, right?
So do they,
it's energetically enhanced.
do they lay like the woman with pregnant on the sand or water?
No, they're on their fours.
On their fours,
yeah.
like standing up, and they give birth on their fours.
Yeah.
What? That's crazy.
All these different negative beliefs that we have of
Yeah,
like how it's supposed to be, and you don't go to the hospital because nobody's sick. Why should you go to the hospital?
To give birth and in a cold space with all this.
The lights, the LED lights, and the
Yeah.
whole is just stressful, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to have a stressful environment to
And
give
sick
birth. You
people
want to have
around
a pure environment to give birth,
Wow.
a natural environment to give birth.
I like that.
Because then you get the water as well, which kind of eases the transition from the placenta to this reality, this dimension.
So the pregnant woman is standing kind of like with water around her?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And then the baby can just kind of come out.
Yeah.
And then I've seen those births where the babies come out and they swim and they just start swimming around.
Yeah. It's magical.
Yeah. Well, it's nature. It's life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. But it's magical because we're not used to it. We're not used to this process, this natural process that we think, wow, this is impossible. I've never thought of it like this, because we're told that when you're pregnant, you go to the hospital and then a doctor will carry you and spank you in the booty and then you're But yeah, giving birth in the ocean and with salt water and ocean water and good air, and wow, that's
so many things to discover and study.
Yeah, I've never heard of that before. I mean, I've heard of water like births like in a pool, in a bathtub.
Also
maybe.
very good.
Yeah, I mean, better than being in a hospital. Being at home in an environment with less stress, like you're more comfortable. Yeah, when you're in the hospital, you don't know the environment, you don't know who these people are. I mean, yeah, you maybe know your doctor, obviously, but you're in a different state. But when you're at home, your cortisol levels are down, your stress are down. You can do some hypnotherapy, like you said, and
psychic imprints. It's all about organizing the psychic imprints and reducing the difficult and traumatic ones and optimizing better ones. Right?
I like that.
Wim Hof, in a rare interview, said that he was left in a cold hallway in the hospital when he was born. I don't know how long, and I googled his birth date, and it's in April. In Holland, in April, it's in the 60s or whenever he's born, is probably still cold, right? So the cold that he felt was one of the first sensations that his body experienced, and so that's why now he's in the cold and there's something just so familiar, right? Because psychic imprints are real and they happen even though you can't remember them from the day you're born, right? And so these different events will affect your personality. So now his personality is one that loves the cold, and he's very charismatic about it, and he shares it. That comes from a psychic imprint. Wow. Kids that are adopted, that are separated at birth or in the few weeks, have a lifelong feeling of rejection because they were rejected by their biological mother. Right? So these psychic imprints are important to organize and to be aware of them so that you can enhance the whole process. So that's why the hypnobirthing and the water birthing are so important, because these things take place in your mind and they remain there. That's why some people, they take ayahuasca and they see their birth.
Wow.
Yeah, I haven't, but some people I've heard say that when they take ayahuasca, they can see their birth. It's like they're there.
See their birth.
Yeah,
That's
it's still in the brain. It's still in the mind.
It's
somewhere really deep in the subconscious mind.
So with neurohacking, can we be able to access all of these memories? Is that, I mean, I think a lot of people, when they hear neurohacking, they think of like Limitless. Have you seen Limitless? Yeah, with an NZT, and you're able to access all parts of your brain. I mean, do we only use 10% of our brain, or what's this?
I think that's a fallacy.
It's a fallacy, right? Yeah.
And even just the default mode network, you're using different parts of the brain, which is more than 10%. It's just wiring in different ways. And then if you have the amygdala and you're in the stress response, then it's a different part. But yeah, no, I don't think it's, we can research that, but it's a misconception.
And so the neurohacking is also not just the brain, right? It's also your nervous system throughout your body.
It's the heart, it's the respiration, the respiratory system, the cardiac system.
Had told me that the heart has its own nervous system or neurons. I think the first guy that I interviewed, the heart guy, Kevin, he's really big on the heart, and he was saying how the heart, even when you take it away from the body, it can beat on its own. I don't know if you know.
It has its own consciousness.
Own consciousness.
Heart transplants. I don't know if
Right.
you've heard of the heart transplants,
Yeah.
where the person receiving the heart starts to exhibit cravings and desires and memories from the previous donor.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Because I was talking about quantum physics in the field, that energy between the proton and the electron has information. That's what tells the electron how far or how close to rotate around this is attraction repulsion,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also this information, the identity of the atom, which gives order to reality, right? That's why we have order, because every atom has its function. The atoms of this table, why is it so hard? Because the atoms have the information that it's hard. Why does the heart beat? And the lung doesn't beat. The heart beats because in the atoms of each molecule of the heart, its function is to beat. So it beats together in tandem.
Okay.
So when you shift that information from one body to another, you start having the characteristics sum in documented cases where it comes from the previous donor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think when we see people getting transplanted with other people's body parts, it's kind of interesting to see the reaction and the heart. And
If you believe in reincarnation,
I think it's possible.
I believe it.
Okay.
If you believe in reincarnation, having an organ transplanted to another body is said to kind of prevent, or kind of put you in a limbo where you can't really reincarnate, but this is just theoretical. Obviously, who can ever prove that?
Yeah, who can even prove reincarnation?
But if you think about, like, I've done past life regression therapy where I could viscerally see my past lives under the hypnosis.
Okay.
And so I believe in reincarnation. I
Okay.
don't know if I believe in the organ transplant, keeping you in a limbo, but it's an interesting theory.
Yeah.
Everything is a theory. Time is a theory. Gravity is a theory.
Yeah. Gravity, time. Yeah,
time,
even
time, space, the warp of reality of matter.
Yeah. It's
So
all
many things to investigate. We'll investigate. We'll do another podcast.
I like that. Yeah. But with the nervous system, so what about the nervous system in the gut? I heard that there's the size of a cat brain of nerves within your gut. So, like the microbiome is there too, but the amount of nerves that are within that, and yeah, it's interesting because I was listening to this one guy. He was talking about the chakra levels, and he was saying how you have your root chakra, which is survival, then your sacral chakra, and then you have one other chakra in your belly button, and that kind of controls wisdom and intuition, and then with the whole gut, and that's where we get our gut feeling, and also our serotonin is produced mostly in our guts.
Mainly in the gut.
We thought it was in our brain, but it's in our gut, right?
It's in the gut.
It's crazy.
That's why type A personalities have a hard time digesting meals, and their metabolism isn't optimized because they're so stressed, because all the serotonin and melatonin and cortisol it's all happening there, right?
It's all happening in the gut. Different brains, different parts. But then this one guy was also saying that consciousness is in every cell of your body. So we're not just our brain, we're not just our hearts or our gut, but we're a collection of these different organs and systems functioning to create this whole. But then not even that, like you said, like even us being here right now, we're vibrating on a certain frequency, so we're affecting each other.
Yeah.
Right. And then just us also to the collective of a town or a city or of a country or of the world is vibrating, and it's affecting each other. So
From the heart has a magnetic field.
that's the center. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
The heart is the center.
The Maharishi effect. You know that one?
No.
The Maharishi effect is where they took a group of meditators. This happens in Thailand, actually. Kids meditate world peace.
Mm-hmm.
And so you statistically see an effect on wars and crime going down. And they want to reproduce this because this is what science and studies are. It's just being able to reproduce something, a hypothesis. They had 4,000 transcendental meditators that went to Washington. TM is the meditation the Beatles did with Maharishi. That's what's called the Maharishi effect.
Okay.
And they had 4,000. They wanted to collectively impact the crime rates of Washington. And the mayor said the crime rate has been so consistent in the past, I don't know how many decades, that you would need the winter storm of the century to stop the crime in the city. And they meditated for several days. And they were able to statistically by 25% reduce the not only crime but also accidents because there was more order and energy. But that comes from each person's heart. And so the field increases, and then when you magnify it with many people, only 4,000 out of, I don't know, 2 million people in Washington, 1.5 million. That affects the collective of that area. And that's why I was saying before, the collective fear that was felt in 2020 was so pervasive that it really affects the whole world, right?
Wow.
But you can align yourself, and it's through the heart. When you slow down the brain, which I'm very much in my brain, I did biochemistry.
Right.
But if you slow down that and you get into you connect with the heart, you're expanding the field around your body, and you can connect with other people, and you have higher emotions, higher levels of emotions, and things start to flow.
That's amazing. That's so crazy. I mean, imagine instead of, this time last year, instead of everyone locking down and being in fear, everyone just started meditating, vibrating, and saying, okay, like let's just raise our consciousness and not.
A lot of people started.
Really?
This was like the kind of
balancing.
No, I was gonna say the dark night of the soul, the collective dark night of the soul, where people have their trauma, and this is what kickstarted them to find a solution. They're at home bored or anxious or stressed or fearful, and so I gotta find a solution to this.
Right.
And then these apps and popularity in your friend and your acquaintance, and somebody's meditating, like maybe I'll try that. So a lot of people got on the meditation bandwagon in the last year. So that was the good part about 2020.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of with every negative thing or bad thing we consider to be, there's always this adverse reaction. We respond to it, and that's part of the human experience, that our brains are designed to adapt, right? We're not like other animals where a horse is born and a horse is able to walk and function on its own. A dog is born and they're able, for the most part, to go around and to operate. Even like monkeys or gorillas, they're born and they're able to just ride around sometimes. But humans were born not being able to do anything. I mean, we need our support of our mother and to be nurtured for the first few years of our lives, so our brains can develop and get an understanding for the environment. So we've evolved to adapt to different situations, and for this is where we're at now. I mean, we're able to just be able to change our environment and be able to adapt to it. And
it's key, adaptability.
Yeah, I think it was Charles Darwin who said that it's not survival of the fittest or strongest, but it's survival of those that are able to adapt to thrive in whatever situation they're at, because that's the most important. It doesn't matter if you're strong or you're fit, but what if the situation now changes? What if you're able to maybe climb a tree really well, right? But what if now you're thrown in the water and you can't swim? You were strong in that one situation, but can you adapt and learn how to swim? So I think that's the biggest part. And when we talk about neurohacking, is that no matter where you're at right now in life, whether you're thinking, oh, I'm depressed or I'm struggling or I'm going through this situation, that it's just a matter of just flicking a switch and changing your mindset, or even changing your environment, because the mind affects the physical, but the physical affects the mind. It's both ways, right? It's not just one or the other. So if you're deciding which route to go, if you can't get into that mindset, then change your environment, change what's going on to your body. Maybe change your clothes or change, become in a more peaceful situation. I mean, that's why people go to Vipassana or go somewhere else, because you change your physical environment, and then your mind will follow. And then now your mind is more at peace and more at ease. And then now you can use that and hold on to it. Because I know a lot of people, they go to ayahuasca ceremonies, they go to Vipassana ceremonies, and then what happens is, they come back and they're all like peaceful and enlightened, and then a week later, 2 weeks later, they're out and or back in the same zone and working on, depressed, and in their cars, like yelling at people, flicking people off, because they don't hold on to it. They go back into their environment now is also re-affecting their minds.
Right.
So yeah, I think that
keep up with the practice. That's what's important.
Keep up with, it's not just it's not whatever goal is not reaching the goal. It's what you may get to that goal, but it's still work. It's still a process. It's keeping on going. It's a journey. It's all the journeys. There are different points and the destinations, but eventually, once you reach that point, there's going to be another goalpost, and there's going to be this other thing that you want to do, and you may not have thought that once you reach this goal, that you may even not like where you thought you were going to be at, or you may enjoy it, but how long can you hold on to that? And it's about sharing that with other people also. Connection with other people, and being in connection with yourself first, right? That's what we all say. and then vibrating that energy and being that that the vibration thing of other people reminds me of, you ever watch Dragon Ball Z with Goku? But anyways, in the part they have this spirit bomb when he needs to collect, he doesn't have any energy, and he calls on the people, everyone in like the world to like come on, like, and everyone just starts vibrating and giving their energy, and then he just collects his energy into the spirit bomb and is able to defeat the person. But I mean, it sounds so like hippie stuff, but I don't know, the statistics with the Beatles, right? That's, I mean, I've never heard of that, but that's such an important thing that I feel like we should all know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
it's growing in consciousness.
Yeah. Do you think it is growing, or do you think that it's only a
Yeah.
select few people?
More and more people are becoming conscious of what we're talking about. That's why podcasts work. That's why meditation apps work. That's why Tulum is vibing, you know, and you've got all these different resources and plant medicine and healing. And once you can heal, you can transcend, you can move forward, right? You can break patterns.
And what does transcending look like? What is the future for if we're moving in the right direction? What do you see for humanity and the earth and life and all beings? Like, what is that future transcendence look like? Or can you visualize that? Does it have an appearance?
Yeah, you know, I don't. You know, if you look at humanity 100, 200, 300 years ago, things evolve. Our level of comfort and our perception on things evolve. This is evolution. Okay. Right? So consciousness also evolves. But at the same time, you know, we seem to be living patterns of cyclicality. Right? There's a sunrise every day. There's equinoxes and solstices every year. There's the hurricane season in the Caribbean every September, October, November. Life is about patterns, but you know, if you look within yourself and if you're evolving and you feel you are, then collectively we can evolve as a humanity and consciousness.
I like that. I think I've heard this one guy say that when you look at people who kind of can predict the future, they kind of look at patterns, and they look at the past, like the Mayans, for example. When they built their calendar or their predictions for the future, it wasn't that they were predicting the future in the sense that they were looking at patterns, and that eventually, you know, at 2020 or whatever, or 2010 or whatever, 2012, this pattern would reemerge. So they weren't really predicting it. They were just saying that eventually we're going to fall into the same pattern again and again and again. So it's kind of predicting pattern. Well, for me, the future, an ideal future would look like, have you ever seen Star Trek, like the TV shows and stuff like that? It talks about in the future how humanity is all working towards a collective good of traveling space and exploring space, where there's no more money, there's no more war, there's no more need for like bigotry and hatred and racism and all these things, because we've through technology or through human evolution, we've gotten rid of all these issues, these petty issues, and now we're looking more towards evolving and being one with
the 5D world, the immaterial world.
Right?
Like if you told somebody 50 years ago that their heart emits a magnetic field outside of their body, they'd think you're crazy. Right? Now more and more people are open to this because there's instruments, because we can measure this, because consciousness is evolving. And so the whole 3D to 5D is understanding the energetic component of life, the ability to heal the body, which is physical, but using the mind, which is not physical, which is immaterial, but the power and the energy of our mind.
Right.
And so once you understand frequency and binaurals and different techniques that you can take to change your mind, that's when you evolve. Like I was talking about biology before. I mean, once you have higher levels of energy, you can start thinking differently and accept premises that might have gone against your beliefs before you had that level of energy.
Okay. I like that. It's a change. It's going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Cool. So can you tell people where they can find you? And
I have an Instagram, Neuro-hack Ian from Neurology, and my name is Ian, so Neuro-hack Ian. I have a website as well, but it was more for the corporate world in Canada, in French, so I might have to revamp that maybe when I have my hypnobirthing courses ready to go.
Nice.
But so far, the Instagram works.
Okay, cool. And so how long have you been here in Tulum?
5 months.
5 months. Okay.
Yeah.
And are you gonna stay here for a while, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, I feel very much at home here. I feel like I'm nesting. I love my place. I got into like interior design stuff for my place, which I never have before. It was just a place to sleep, and now it's like this would be great here, and that's gonna go great in my living room. And so I feel like I'm very much at home here.
Nice. And what do you think it is about Tulum that so many people come here and they just love it?
The energy.
Mhm.
This woman who teaches mysticism said that it lies on a ley line. So these ley lines is where there's these crossroads of energy on Earth, like where the pyramids of Giza are built,
Mhm.
Mount Shasta in
Mhm.
California, Sedona. There's a place in Ibiza like this, Mount Kailash, Glastonbury, and this is one of them where there's this energy vortex, and you can see it. It's also quite polarized, and you have a lot of positivity and a lot of negativity. There's this saying, either Tulum adopts you or it spits you out.
Mhm.
You know, because if you're not aligned, you might get spit out, and if you are aligned, then you get propelled to another level from the energy in the land that's here. So I think a lot of people feel that, and they see the opportunities, and they feel, not only see, but they feel that their levels of consciousness and energy are enhanced. So
I like that.
this
Yeah.
would be one of my theories.
Lines. Yeah, that's cool. I wonder how the people who built the pyramids were able to, or the technology that they had was so advanced, and how were they able to get to that level in humanity, and then what happened to them once they reached that level? You know, it's crazy that, I mean, they can have this insane society, but then now it's where are they? Where is it? Where is this? And I feel that's the cycle, right, with all civilizations, that you have this like period of growth, and then you reach this level, and then you fall back down, and then you come back up, and it's like cyclical, right? These patterns. So yeah, interesting. Well, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for listening and being a part of this also. Yeah, we are here in Tulum, and yeah. Is there anything more you want to say? You want to talk about?
I shared a lot of stuff I'm already passionate about, so I'm glad I was able to have a platform to share, and hopefully it connected with people.
Yeah.
Maybe not everything will connect, but at some points I'm hoping people will take and create change.
Yeah.
And evolve.
Change. And you've done other podcasts, right? But all in French.
Yeah, in Montreal.
Nice.
And one of them here, a couple of friends of mine from Montreal also spent a few months here, so we recorded here in Tulum, but in French.
I met them. Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
What is it? Mind Bloom or something?
Mind Bloom.
Mind Bloom.
Yeah, Mind Bloom.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah. I think change is a good thing. Change is always, I mean, it's something that's inevitable, right? That's the one constant in life is change. And I think we are striving for change, but realizing that change is going to happen, and we just got to guide it in the right direction, kind of, almost. You know, we kind of try to force it where, hey, I want things to change, I want things to happen this way, but it's like, no, change is going to happen regardless. Just like try to move it in the direction that you feel, you know, vibrates and aligns with your ideals of humanity.
Yeah. One thing is passive meditations and active meditations. I feel like passive is just accepting change and not reacting, learning to just be okay with it. And active meditations is generating change and creating, you know, and having really what you most desire, and being aligned, right? So there's two ways and they're both great. I do both. I do passive sometimes, and then I do active other times.
Nice.
But change is inevitable, like you said. So
I like running. Running is my form of meditation. A lot of people think that meditating is just sitting down and just like, and that's obviously a great form of meditation. But for me, it's being running, or maybe even doing the dishes. I feel really meditative when I'm doing dishes. I'm just in this zone where I'm just cleaning. I'm just like,
you're cleansing your energy.
Yeah. Cleansing my dishes and my energy.
The symbolism of it is cleansing your energy by cleansing your plate.
Right. Yeah. Symbolism. I think that in our lives we forget how big symbolism is, and how things affect us a lot. Even like language, or artifacts in our house, in our place. Like you said, you're getting into interior design, but having certain symbols and things around your space, you know, subconsciously, energetically wise, will influence you.
Yeah.
So what is it? Feng shui, having a good feng shui.
Feng shui. Having an altar. A lot of people have altars in their homes in Tulum. Yeah, I have one too.
Oh, you have an altar.
Yeah.
What's your altar look like?
It's got a stone, like a beautiful blue aquamarine stone.
Okay.
It has a candle, incense, a few other things, offerings that we charge when we do these events at the beach on the 21st of every month. Offerings?
What kind? Like what do you offer it to?
People will do a ceremony where we'll meditate together, the north, south, east, west, and people will bring fruits and grains and seeds, and then you could take some of them home because they've been charged in this circle, this energetic circle, and so.
Cool.
Yeah, manifesting abundance and being in equilibrium, aligned.
Nice. I
Yeah.
like that. I met this guy the other day that had this chain, and in this chain he had in the center he had a diamond in it, and it was like these four metal, kind of almost like a pyramid, and on the top of the pyramid was the diamond, and he used that to channel and get energy, and it's interesting. I mean, yeah. And in Bali they do a lot of these ceremonies and offerings to their gods, and every morning they put fruit, or they burn these like candle things, and they put them outside their house. And yeah, I think a lot of it is also to the intent of not necessarily the type of offering or meditation or whatever physical substance there is, but the intent and the vision behind it, if it aligns with you and what you're believing, your belief system.
Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. All right. Yep. And I think we're good. No.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, and peace out. Adios. All right. Oh, do you want to do like a little humming?
I did it before.
Oh, you did it before.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't do like a closing one?
Nah.
Oh, I think that's a good idea. Oh, and maybe just keep going with the frequency, right?
Yeah. Maintain it.
Maintain so you
Yeah.
keep going. All right. Cool.